right, welcome back to Newsday. We're now crossing live to the House of Representatives, where the lawmakers are meeting with the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, that's Yemi Cardoso, over the state of the economy. Let's tune in.
I will now invite our guests to make presentation, and we're going to start with the FIRS, and after that, we'll have the CBN. And after the CBN, we have the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, and thereafter, we'll have the Minister of Finance. Because they are interwoven, we will expect that all the invited guests, just like the service chief did, stay till the end, so that if there are related questions, we'll be able to address it. Once again, let me mention that this is not an investigative hearing. We are just to interact, to hear from you, and Nigerians want to also hear from you. Thank you very much. Over to you, FIRS.
Honorable Mr. Speaker, sir, leadership of the House, and honorable member, thank you for inviting us here today to share our thoughts in a collective manner, the way we think we can charter the new course for our economy. And I will start by clearly state the mandate of Federal Inland Revenue in the midst of all this. Our mandate is to assess, to collect, and to account for all accruable revenue to Federation of
Order, please.
Nigeria.
Order.
This is our mandate. We are not revenue generating agency. We are revenue collecting agency. And this is very clear because we are just a consequence collector of all the impact of economic policy, either from Central Bank or from the Federal Ministry of Finance. I will start from what has happened in the last 12 months, challenges we have, the plan we have to solve that challenges, and then I will open for the question and input from honorable members. For 2023, target for the service was set at 10 trillion from the National Budget and Ministry of Finance. Through the efforts of them all and all of us here, we'll achieve 12.3 trillion. And this is not in isolation. This comes about because of the bold decision taken by Mr. President by rectifying the distortion in our economic parameters, the removal of subsidy, and then the wonderful work also being led by Central Bank in the unification of the rates. This has serious impact in the last 7 months of our collection because the rates that we use and also the wastage, so to say, from subsidy payment we were able to curtail that. So we have overperformance from both the VAT collection and company income taxes because of most especially those that are dollar-based. We have challenges in collection from our oil production, from oil taxes, and this is in connection with the low production compared to what we planned for in the budgets. All other type of taxes did well, most especially education tax, because we over that one by more than 290% that we used to do, that we overperform in education tax that we've collected. So this is the way we've done in the last 1 year, and as a result of that, we have the target for this year, based on the approved budget, to collect 19.2 trillion, which is 7.2 trillion more than what we actually collected this year. And given this economic condition and with the promise of Mr. President that we are not going to introduce additional tax. We are not going to increase any tax, considering the situation and welfare of our people. That what we need to do is to re-strategize within to make sure that we bring more people into tax net. So without increasing the tax rate, that will be able to meet the target. And that is what has led to us restructuring the way we want to do it today in federal land revenue. Prior to this time, we used to have the group, being grouped in tax form, like VAT, you have stamp duty, you have all these segments by function. For us to be able to meet this target, with the approval of Honorable Minister of Finance, we structure, and then we move from that functional unit to customer-centric unit. And what would this do for us? One is that we want to develop our expertise in the way we address our customer. In this sense, our taxpayers. So we are grouping them today based on their turnover categorization. And you have large tax, you have medium, and you have small taxpayer. And what would this do for us? This will help us to serve them very well. So we've provided, as today, the one-stop shop for tax collection. And this will reduce the multiple investigation, multiple taxes that the taxpayer faces today. And then when they go to one tax office, they will be able to do all their taxes, from VAT, company income tax, stamp duty, and all forms of taxes. And this one will develop expertise within our team, because one of our vision and mission of Mr. President is that 80% of the work of federal land revenue must be done by the staff of the federal land revenue, because of the oath of confidentiality we have with the taxpayer. So this one will help us to concentrate on those that give us the best, because it's 80-20 Pareto that we are using. The less than 60 companies in Nigeria today contributed more than 67% to our tax collection in form of the capital company income tax that we collect. So we've developed the strategy to make sure that we focus on our customer, in this case, our taxpayer, so that we can garner all what is needed. And not only that, because we are not there only to collect taxes, because the relationship between the service and the taxpayer is that of symbiotic. We are providing the economic advice and taxpayer services to them, because the focus of Mr. President is not to tax the seed, not to tax the investment. We are not to tax the poverty. We are to focus on prosperity, we are to focus on the fruit, and we are to focus on the return on investment. And that is why coming together from CBN, Federal Land Revenue, planning, and other, because it is the results of their coordinated policies that result in prosperity, from which Federal Land Revenue will collect taxes. So for us, we also have the pillar in our services that we will develop our people, we develop technology, and we have process through which we will collect all what needs to be collected. The fair treatment is actually our guide word, because we are not to kill the tree that bear the fruit. We are to nurture, to fertilize the tree. And that is why the conducive economic environment, it is actually fundamental to achieving our tax collection. So having this sectoral conversation on the way to have a good economic environment, it is very important, and it is helpful for federal inland revenue. And
Deputy Chief Whip, I hope you are timing him. Go ahead. You have a few minutes to finish.
So for us, as I've said earlier, we are consequential collector, because we don't generate revenue, we collect revenue. So the product of this wonderful coordinated economic policy, it is what will help us in achieving our goal and meeting our targets. So we have the technology, we have the people, and we have the process. And like I said, the oil production plays significant role in revenue, in achieving our revenue target, focusing more on being able to provide good security. It will also help us. And also, through the help of Honorable Minister of Finance, we have put many measures in place, one of which is what Mr. President has also approved, that going forward and implementing 2024 budget, the expenditure framework, income framework need to be synchronized. Mr. President has approved, and I know Honorable Minister has sent a circular to that effect, that going forward, all the payments, most especially from the ministry to all the contractor, will be done directly to contractor. And why is this important? 7.5% is the VAT rate, and then you have 5%, almost on more than 90% of the contracts that government executes. So if you take it into the number, we have the capital budget of above 9 trillion for this year. If we collect 7.5% and 5%, as case may be, 12.5% of that 9.7 trillion is going to roughly above 700 billion. That is taxes alone from government. Apart from being able to collect our tax effectively, it will also help our cash management, because we are not only to collect, but we need to account for all the way we spend all this money. So because of my time,
kindly round up, and so, you have 1 more minute, sir.
Okay. So I will now open for the question and the input from my honorable members, our honorable members, and the leadership.
Thank you very much. We'll call you up again, so you will just make your presentation and sit down.
Thank you.
The question time will be the same time, so that if they are related, your colleagues might help you to address the ones that are joined. So thank you for your presentation. You may have your seat, and we'll call you back.
Thank you.
Yeah. The next guest to make his presentation is our very own governor of the central bank. Let's have our brother Cardoso make his presentation. Exactly 10 minutes, you should be done.
Sure. Your Excellency, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the leadership of the House of Representatives, honorable members of the House of Representatives, good morning and thank you, or good afternoon, and thank you very much for the honor of being here today. I am really and truly honored to appear before the House to address what obviously is very critical concerns relating to exchange rates and inflationary pressures on the economy. Upon receiving the invitation letter, I keenly sensed the urgency and the acknowledgement of the economic challenges and resistance to proposed solutions by various stakeholders. However, I want to emphasize that we are now at a turning point, and the bold reforms underway across different segments of the economy, though initially challenging, are aimed at addressing these challenges sustainably. And really, I would like to emphasize the word sustainably. I'm confident that positive outcomes are already emerging and will become more apparent in the near future. The dedicated and relentless efforts being made are certain to bring about significant and positive changes for our economy. On that note, distinguished members, I'm happy to inform you that as at yesterday, the volume of transactions on our market was over $800 million. This is the first time in many years that it has achieved this level. Notably, recent reports from international rating agencies such as Fitch, Moody's, Standard & Poor, and commendations from multilateral banks like World Bank reflect this positive trajectory with upgrades to Nigeria's rating from stable to positive. This is a potential reversal of the deterioration in the country's fiscal and external position due to the authorities' reform efforts. While recognizing the painful adjustments, these all point to a direction that will unlock much needed growth and development for our economy in the medium to long term. Honorable members, I acknowledge that despite these commendations, the concerns regarding the cost of living and currency rates remain. Indeed, this is the major topic of concern in our villages, our towns, and our cities. The urgency of the matter is not lost on us at the Central Bank, and I really want to assure you that we're working tirelessly with colleagues from across government, including with the leadership of this House, to bring lasting solutions. Given that this will be the first time I'll be before this esteemed body this year, 2024, please permit me to just very briefly provide you with what we consider our outlook for 2024. Global outlook. I will not bore you with too much of those details given the time challenge, but I'll conclude in saying that globally, the landscape continues to be very challenging, and that key policy priorities involve ensuring durable inflation reduction, addressing fiscal pressures, and fostering sustainable and inclusive growth. The global monetary policy environment is expected to remain restrictive until sustained inflation reduction becomes evident. Obviously, that has huge repercussions for us in Nigeria. Governments around the world must grapple with rising fiscal pressures, necessitating credible medium-term fiscal frameworks to effectively manage debt burdens. On the domestic outlook, which I know is very important to all of us, we know and remember that the federal government of Nigeria anticipates a 3.76% real GDP in 2024, slightly surpassing the estimated 3.75% in 2023. This optimism is backed by key government reforms and the expectation of improved crude prices and production, which are set to drive economic growth. Inflationary pressures are expected to decline in 2024 due to the CBN's inflationary targeting policy, aiming to rein in inflation to 21.4%, aided by improved agricultural productivity and easing global supply chain pressures. The Nigerian foreign exchange market is currently facing increased demand pressures, causing a continuous decline in the value of the naira. Factors contributing to this situation include speculative forex demand, inadequate forex supply due to non-remittance of crude oil earnings to the CBN, increased capital outflows, and excess liquidity from the fiscal activities. The shift to a market-driven exchange rate was intended to create a stable macroeconomic environment and discourage currency hoarding. However, short-term volatilities attributed to arbitrage and speculation have been an issue. To address exchange rate volatility, a comprehensive strategy has been initiated to enhance liquidity in the forex markets, and I made reference to the outcome of that earlier. This includes unifying FX market segments, clearing outstanding FX obligations, introducing new operational mechanisms for BDCs, enforcing the net open position limits, and adjusting the remunerable standard deposit facility cap. Honorable members, we understand the economic costs of these developments, not just for the economy, but also as they affect ordinary Nigerians. However, as I mentioned in previous engagements, these costs are temporary, and our decisions will address a lot of fundamental issues, bothering Nigeria's macroeconomic landscape. Honorable members, these measures aimed at ensuring a more market-oriented mechanism for exchange rate determination will boost foreign exchange inflows, stabilize the exchange rate, and minimize its pass-through to domestic inflation. On the exchange rate, permit me to say that, put simply, the exchange rate is determined by the dynamics of supply and demand for a product or service. In essence, similar to the pricing of cows or cars, the value of the US dollar in Nigeria is determined by the balance of US dollars entering the country and the demand for US dollars amongst Nigerians. Applying this demand and supply principle, let's examine how the exchange rate has performed in recent years. The exchange rate in Nigeria has increased or depreciated due to the simultaneous occurrence of two factors: a decline in the supply of US dollars coinciding with a surge in the demand for US dollars. Looking at the demand side of the exchange rate, it's important to note the growing number of Nigerian students studying abroad. In 1980s and 1990s, the need for US dollars for their living expenses was minimal. However, recent data shows a significant change. According to UNESCO's Institute of Statistics, the number of Nigerian students abroad increased from less than 15,000 in 1998 to over 71,000 in 2015. By 2018, the figure had reached 96,702 students, as per the World Bank. Another report projects the number of Nigerian students studying abroad to exceed 100,000 by 2022. Additionally, the UK's Higher Education Statistics Agency noted a 64% increase in Nigerians studying in the country, rising from 1,320 in 2019-2020 academic session to 21,305 by the 2020-2021 session. Given this data, it is crucial to highlight that between 2010 and 2020, foreign education expenses amounted to a substantial $28.65 billion, as per the CBN's publicly available balance of payments statistics. Similarly, medical treatment abroad has incurred around $11 billion in costs during the same period. Consequently, over the past decade, foreign exchange demand for education and healthcare has totaled nearly $40 billion. Notably, this amount surpasses the total current foreign exchange reserves of the CBN. Mitigating a significant portion of this demand could have resulted in a considerably stronger naira today. On the supply side of the exchange rate, to bolster the inflow of US dollars into a country, the economy must earn these dollars through exports, whether oil or non-oil, or by attracting foreign investments. A robust economic foundation is essential to produce goods and services that the global market is willing to pay for in US dollars. When the supply surpasses demand, the exchange rate appreciates, causing the price of the dollar to fall. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, the contrary has taken place. Regrettably, over the past 12 years, our oil exports constituted over 90% of our foreign exchange revenues and have declined from $93.89 billion in 2011 to $31.4 billion in 2020. From the aforementioned points, we can infer that the genuine issue impacting the exchange rate is simultaneous decrease in the supply and increase in the demand for US dollars. It also seems that the task of stabilizing the exchange rate, while an official mandate of the CBN, would necessitate efforts beyond the bank itself and indeed to an attitudinal change of all our citizens. My concluding remarks, and I know I'm pressed for time, honorable members, My team and I are dedicated to refocusing the bank by giving primacy to price stability. We also aim to build confidence in the Nigerian economy through the maintenance of stability in consumer prices and the foreign exchange market. We are aware that the twin challenges of that the policy measures implemented by the bank will permeate the economy in the short to medium term.
Just 1 more minute, sir.
Inflation pressures may persist, albeit temporarily, but are expected to moderate significantly by the fourth quarter of 2024. Exchange rate pressures are also expected to reduce with a smooth functioning of foreign exchange markets. We are committed to implementing policies that will ensure a stable macroeconomic environment and guarantee improved livelihoods for all Nigerians. Thank you for your attention, honorable members.
Thank you very much. I think the Deputy Whip was carried away with your fantastic presentation that she allowed you some minutes. Maybe.
The Honorable Minister of Budget and National Economic Planning to address the House now. As briefly as possible, will help us.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, the leadership, Right Honorable members, clerk and staff of the National Assembly, members of the media, good afternoon. You are Right Honorable. I'm going to speak on 3 perspectives which relates to the mandate of the ministry. The national planning mandate, the budget function, and the bilateral function, particularly because they relate to the concerns of the National Assembly, which has been expressed in the remarks of the Right Honorable Speaker. Just for emphasis, I will like to quote from the mandate of the ministry that among our functions, we are to determine how best the fundamental objectives and directive principle of state policy contained in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, can achieve the major objectives of optimal development and suggest amendments that may be required from time to time. Most people do not realize that the discharge of the fundamental objectives reside in the national planning function. Not surprisingly, Mr. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu campaigned on a renewed hope agenda, which appreciates the need for a plan-based budget or plan-based national program of development that, as we speak, we have an Agenda 2050, we have National Development Plan, we have, of course, the medium-term expenditure framework, which you passed, and the renewed hope agenda, as well as a lot of work done by policy advisory committees that were set up when this government came into office. So all this fed into the 2 budgets that were presented to the National Assembly by President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The 2.17 trillion supplementary appropriation with emphasis in security, infrastructure, and commitment to deliver on promises made, particularly to labor and generality of Nigerians, as well as the 2024 budget, which, with your blessing, was passed on the last day of 2023 in the sum of 28.77 trillion and signed on the 1st of January 2024, as well as now uploaded in the GIPMIS platform ready for implementation. And prior to that, there was a negotiation with the National Assembly where Mr. President sought and the National Assembly agreed to amend a supplementary appropriation, which is the first he inherited, in the sum of $819 billion to provide $500 billion to fund palliatives to support the adjustment that were occasioned by some of the bold and courageous measures that were taken to restore macroeconomic stability and functioning of the economy. And the two budgets, in particular the 2024 budget, has significantly delivered on deficit reduction so as to assure the private sector that we will restore fiscal discipline and ensure that they are not crowded out, but that public expenditure it becomes catalytic and enabling of private sector investment. Equally, with your support, we delivered a budget that has the highest capital expenditure in the last 2 decades. And I think you all ought to be commended, as well as Mr. President. 39% capital expenditure. Because most people, when computing capital expenditure, they only compute the MDA capital of 9.19, whereas in the statutory transfers to NJC, to Niger Delta Development Commission, to Northeast Development Commission, the statutory transfers compose both a capital and a current component. So when we add to that, we'll see that the capital is much higher. This, of course, is commendable, is consistent with Mr. President's commitment to Nigerians that we are not going to take the easy way out. And more than that, the budget provided more money, both on nominal and in real terms, than has ever been provided in the priority sectors. Defense and security, infrastructure, agriculture, as well as innovative funds that have been created, that have been provided for, that are enablers of economic activity. A 100 billion naira National Agricultural Fund, a consumer credit fund that we believe will be catalytic in promoting domestic manufacturing, a mortgage fund that we believe will support expansion of construction activity, and given the fact that our construction sector must really rely on locally sourced materials, one can imagine that that will generate significant economic activity in a short time, as well as increase in spending to education, the highest that has ever been, health, the highest that has ever been, in order to pay attention to the fact that we believe these are the enablers of tomorrow's growth. So that is given the time that we are provided, that is basically how we delivered on the 2024 budget, but with your support. And this budget has been uploaded on the GPMIS platform. The implementation, one of the implementing circulars, as we have heard earlier from the chairman of our FRIS, has gone out. The second one will go out. And this is where maybe I will use this opportunity to appeal. The National Assembly, particularly the respected House of Reps, is rightfully worried about complaints about cost of living. And one of the quickest wins, and this challenge does not come unanticipated. We reckon with global challenges that are impacting us domestically, and we reckon with the transitional nature of some of the measures that we have taken. And we know that they will have some impacts. But there are compensatory mechanisms. One of it is to support domestic production, particularly one that we are most familiar with. 36 states of Nigeria plus FCT, agricultural production is a major component, and as well as other activities for which infrastructure, for which funding has been generously provided in the budget. But this, in implementing this, we need more cooperation, particularly from the National Assembly members. The federal government have nominated a number of projects which you graciously approved. Literally, our budget was slightly, just with slight modification and understandable, Mr. President, being the Democrat that he is, appreciate the National Assembly have the right. Okay. But the National Assembly have nominated projects in the budget, rightfully so, consistent with your representation and powers, and also the ability to contribute to appropriation. But that's where now, in implementing that, we want to prioritize those projects, both on the federal and the National Assembly side, that will stimulate economic activity as quickly as possible. And Right Honorable Speaker, I would like to make that appeal. And as to the current measures, I'm sure we'll hear from the coordinating minister, but today we are having here this hearing in this chamber. What is happening in our country is akin to somebody visiting a reconstruction site. It might be inconvenience. Those living in it might be inconvenience, especially when such reconstruction site involves people living in them. It's an improvement site where you have to discomfort those who are living therein as well as those who are coming to help. But eventually, we are very clear that we are on the right track, and the challenges of the moment are being dealt with. Daily, we are attending meetings under the leadership of the coordinating Minister of the Economy to interrogate what we are doing and to bring more. And we are getting support from international partners. The ministry, even yesterday, we had the German Minister for Economy, we have had EU delegations, all acknowledging the commendable steps that Nigeria had taken under the able leadership of President Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and assuring us of support. And even in the last 7 months, with private sector investment, we have seen announcement of Lagos-Calabar Coastal Railway. We have seen investments in LNG space. We are interacting with holders of long-term capital almost on a daily basis. The President, all of us in the team, and as well as many members of the Cabinet. We are assured that we will overcome the challenge of the moment, and we be on our path to sustain economic growth that includes everyone, as promised by Mr. President. Thank you.
Beautifully presented, I must say. And I like your poetic applications used in your presentation. The poetic application, like Nigeria is a construction site. That means a lot. That the future will be brighter, but for now, there will be dust. There will be some harsh sound in our ears. We might be inconvenienced, but there is hope that a beautiful building is coming up. It might be at the foundation level where people are not seeing it, but there is hope that this construction site will soon become habitable. And I'm happy hearing about investment in LNG. I'm happy hearing about the railway, especially the one you mentioned, Calabar area and all. It's very important for you to go through the whole country. I'm highly interested in that one. I'm also interested in that local content that you just mentioned. Going local to find out what we can use to build our economy up. And that we are right in complaining about cost of living. The motion was not moved here before you came in. We are right. That is what you acknowledge. And you also commended us for partnering with the executive to move the budget within the constitutional budget calendar. And also we insisted in supporting the executive with the 39% capital expenditure, which has never happened before. So there is, I believe there is hope. Your message has given us a lot of hope. Thank you very much. Now let us have the Minister of Finance himself and the coordinating minister. These financial, economic related issues. Let's have him address us. Thank you.
Thank you. His Excellency, the Speaker, House of Representatives, the leadership of the House of Representatives, honorable members, good afternoon. Let me start by, on behalf of my colleagues here and indeed the rest of the economic management team, which I have the privilege to lead, thank you all for this opportunity at this all-important dialogue. I also will, at this time, the very first time we're interacting after the passage of the 2024 budget, thank you on behalf of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for your support in swiftly passing his budget and your collaboration and cooperation generally. We have heard from my colleagues, and naturally they have virtually covered the field. Where we are as a nation economically is a much, much better place than we were on the 29th of May, 2023. We have heard from the Governor of Central Bank. He talked about the unsustainability. He talked about the importance of sustainability before the implementation of the 8-point agenda of the President began. We were in an unsustainable place in terms of the fiscal situation of Nigeria. We were on the road to economic disaster. We had expenditure which was wasteful and unsustainable by way of the subsidy, not just on fuel, but the subsidy on foreign exchange, which confused the incentive framework, and people were chasing cheap dollars in order to make instant profits. Of course, in turning back from that road, as we have heard, there will be dust. However, bold measures have been taken, and there have been positive results. If we look at the finances of the government today, there has been benefit to the Federation account. There has been reduction in the consumption of petrol by about 20 million liters because there was smuggling, apart from even wasteful use of that all-important resource. And likewise, there have been other benefits which have accrued as a result of the changes that have been made. However, there has been cost. Inflation has increased. The cost of living has spiked. And right from the onset, Mr. President committed to making sure that the poorest and the most vulnerable were not left behind. And that's why, as we heard earlier from the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, the palliatives, the interventions have been rolled out. But let us examine exactly where we are today after a series of economic reforms and intervention measures. But first of all, oil production. Mr. Resulted in oil production and sales going down to as little as 1.25 million barrels per day. Where are we now as a result of those interventions in terms of security and collaboration and cooperation across all the stakeholders in that industry? We are at 1.65 barrels per day and rising. And that is the quickest way to give relief. The governor of Central Bank just said now that in 2011, we were virtually at $100 billion a year from oil sales. So we can see the adjustment that has had to be made. Now we are on the way back up, 1.65 million barrels per day and rising. And in addition, the Minister for Budget had said that the bold measures that were taken are resonating around the world. We go to the IMF meetings, UNGA meetings, G20 meetings, and there is nothing but pride and admiration and deep respect for the courage that has been shown economically in Nigeria. And what has also resounded is that we have to look inwards. We have to focus on domestic resource mobilization. The chairman, FIRS, has said what they are doing in terms of domestic resource mobilization. I can tell you that with the application of technology and this august body and the Senate, if you look at the Hansard of December 30, the Senate mandated that we go out and bring government revenue that was lying in MDAs and government-owned enterprises, but rightly belonged in the Consolidated Revenue Fund, to bring it in. And that has been done. And the results are a rise in revenue to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Similarly, in agriculture, if we need to stabilize the economy, two things need to happen. Inflation needs to be tackled. The governor of Central Bank has said what is being done. He has announced his targets for inflation, and the fact that inflation targeting will be a key element of the strategy, which is right because they're in charge of the targets of monetary policy. But in addition to that, when you look at inflation, a large element is food inflation. In fact, food inflation accounts for 33% of the consumer price index. So when you attack food production, raise food production, you bring down the price of food, you bring down inflation, you get a chance to bring down interest rates, and there lies the road to investment. I was recently in Nasarawa. I met all the stakeholders in the agricultural chain, and they were able to commit with confidence to a very good dry season harvest. And we know all the steps that have been taken to intervene in that sector, from fertilizer, from grain supply, to funding for rice, maize, wheat, and cassava to bring under production 400,000 hectares. So these are the steps that are being taken to get inflation down, to stabilize the economy, and prepare for investment. I will also add that in terms of production, industry requires energy. I chair a power sector steering committee to deal with the issues in that sector. And on the issue of interventions, I must return to it. We are talking about increases in revenue available to all tiers of government through the Federation account. And we are also talking about the ability of the federal government to raise resources. The commitment is that as things improve, even though there will be dust as we turn Nigeria into a building site through massive intervention in the housing sector, there will be, at every opportunity possible, further intervention on behalf of the poor, on behalf of the vulnerable, to assist with the cost of living rise, which is an inevitable result of having waited so long before we, as we heard earlier, turn the corner. And I think I will just end by saying that let us be confident, let us be calm, let us be assured that Nigeria has turned the corner in terms of its economic management, and the way forward is up. And at the same time, the poor and the vulnerable will be assisted at every turn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You just was very time conscious. We appreciate the fact that there is an improvement in most sectors that you highlighted, an increase in oil production due to the intervention approved by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which some of you are championing. The fact that you're also looking at local production and also agric, trying to incentivize that sector, goes to show that there is hope. We are also optimistic.
Plenary over the state of the economy. It's a meeting with the economic team. We've heard from the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, that's Zach Adedeji, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Yemi Cardoso, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Abubakar Bagudu, and finally, we also heard from the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, that's Wale Edun. A general sentiment across the board that reiterated the fact that this economic team does feel that we have reached a turning point in the economy. They've shared their consensus that hope is the order of the day and that things are only getting better from this point. Minister Wale Edun quoted, and I quoted, "We are in a much better place," as he made reference to now that the fact that Nigeria is now producing 1.65 million barrels of oil per day, among other issues. All right, we're going to take a very short break. We'll be back shortly.
I will now take you to the House of Reps, where the CBN Governor, Yemi Cardoso, is answering questions from lawmakers on sectoral debate at the ongoing sectoral debate on the economy.
And it's something that we expect will continue to get better as the reform process continues to gather steam. A question was asked with respect to NNPC's money coming in. Has the NNPC's money come in? And the answer to that is the NNPC has commenced the process of moving the accounts and opening accounts with the central bank, and that process continues very positively. So the answer to that is yes. Now, I said something again, maybe I should restate it a bit. With respect to medical and education, I'm not by any means casting any aspersion on anything or any business segment. I'm not. Basically, what I was saying is I felt it was necessary for us all to understand what the nature of the contributions towards limited dollar inflows and great dollar outflows were. One of the great dollar outflows over the recent past has been medical and education and a whole host of others. But all I was trying to illustrate is that we also need to have an attitudinal shift. That attitudinal shift to start to benefit our local economy, whereby we buy locally and we patronize local production. Because if we do not put these numbers into the context I gave you, that the importance of this may be lost. And basically what I was saying is that within a certain period of time, between spending on medical and education in overseas countries, the amount spent, which was estimated at about 40 billion US dollars, was equivalent to our reserves. And that's shocking, to be quite honest. That is very shocking. And I think these are things that we all need to just take a look and think about how we can benefit and strengthen the Naira from having more local production and using the local alternatives that we may have. So that is a wake-up call, as far as I can see. It's a wake-up call. Inflation, naturally, a constantly recurring theme everywhere, and understandably, we're all very concerned, and I know that honorable members having very, very strong connections with their constituents must be inundated with worries and calls. That is what one would expect. And just to say here that, because it's important at this stage, again, in my view, to ask ourselves, to just take a look and ask ourselves, how did we get here? And I think some of those questions have also been posed by some that raise these concerns. How did we get to where we are? A situation where inflation has spiraled the way it is, etc., etc. Now, part of that, as I'm sure we all know, is money supply. As long as we have...
Excuse me, Governor, please. I just want to interject there. Yes. When you were addressing the issue of inflation, Nigerians would like to know more, because as of December 2023, we were at 28.9%. I think 28.92%. And this is significantly impacting on Nigeria's purchasing power and economic well-being. And you know, cost push factor dominates. High energy costs, transportation costs, decline in agricultural productivity due to insecurity, and exchange rate fluctuation. You will agree with me that if the members here are thinking in this direction, they are right, that there is an over-reliance on monetary policy through increasing the MPR, monetary policy rate. And if we continue in that trajectory, there is this risk that there will be further economic slowdown and debt accumulation. So what is worrying these members is that given the limitation of these various monetary policies in addressing this cost push inflation, what other alternatives or complementary strategies is the CBN considering to combat the inflation? In specific terms, they want to hear that. And whether there are plans to adjust the current monetary policy rate strategy in line with the prevailing economic situation. This is some of the things they are trying to capture in the varieties of the questions that they are asking around inflation. So let's hear specifically. Nigerians want to know what measures.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think it's important to say that monetary policy tools can only take us so far. The idea is not to rely on monetary policy tools. Monetary policy tools have a way of moderating a situation where the macroeconomic variables are getting imbalanced. The monetary policy tools on their own are not sufficient, and neither should they be considered as long-term to be reliant on. They cannot be. They help a situation stabilize, but ultimately it requires the work of the fiscal. And that is why it is so important that both the fiscal and the monetary must work hand in hand. We have absolutely no doubt in our minds that the monetary doing it all on its own will not work. We have no doubt about that. So let me be very clear on that. That's not the idea. The idea is to at least be able to buy time and give relief to the system while the other inefficiencies or things that are not working as effectively as they should now kick in.
So is there collaboration with you and the Minister of Finance in seeing that fiscal and monetary policies align in tackling this inflation? Is it there?
Yes, it is. And for the avoidance of doubt, because this is very important, I know many times the question is asked about the relationship between the Ministry of Finance and the central bank, which is very important. And to answer that question before I say something else, we already have joint committees that meet on a very, very regular basis to look at these issues in a harmonized manner. That's one. Some of you.
Honorable colleagues, this is a dignified, sacred house. You should allow the minister to answer the questions, please. The governor, please. The governor.
So we already have committees that work very, very close together to harmonize positions that are being taken. And of course, on the board of the central bank, there's strong representation from the fiscal side. So we ensure that at all times that collaboration is in check and is working smoothly. And where I was going to was, apart from the Ministry of Finance, it is also important that the central bank collaborates with other entities of government. Okay, for example, now we spoke about the NNPC, that NNPC moving its accounts towards the central bank also makes for greater collaboration between the two. And Mr. President's directive that all MDAs should have their accounts with the central bank, I think also speaks volumes of the kind of collaboration that is anticipated between the two. So that, I believe, is something that we're looking to strengthen. And I'm sure that the Minister of Finance will say something more about that from his perspective. But that's definitely an area that we are all very, very, we all do what we can to ensure it works smoothly. Then, in another issue that came up was the issue of development finance. And the question was, or the observation was, that the use of development finance has brought stability, especially in the agri sector in the past. And would the central bank be looking at reforming this or not? And the answer to that is yes. We are of the opinion that the central bank will not be involved in direct interventions. We have nothing against interventions, but we will not be involved in direct interventions. The idea, partner, and where we have institutions that can do it effectively, judiciously, we support them. The point is that Nigeria cannot afford failed interventions. And we as central bank do not have the capacity to engage in what will ultimately lead in failed interventions. Our focus is inflation management, price stability. And that is why we have taken the view that we will de-emphasize these other issues that do not take the final goal of price stability and lead us there. We must. So for that reason, we've refocused our whole efforts to ensure that we live and sleep on the issue of price.
So are you giving any hope to Nigerians today with regards to the dollars, exchange rate?
The exchange rate? Yeah. Back to the issue. The main issue, I think we all know this, there's been very little liquidity in the market. We took certain measures to bring both with banks and non-bank actors. We did that. And the result of that is already showing. You see that liquidity has gone up to $844 million as at yesterday is testimony to that. And I'm confident that we are headed in the right direction and these things will moderate and find their own level. The distortions in the foreign exchange market over a period of time has created, in my view, an artificially high rate. And now that we've removed most of those distortions, we see a situation where those who stayed out of the market are now coming back in, and the concept of willing buyer and willing seller is beginning to realize the objectives as they were set out for in the first place. So I have no doubt in my mind that on the foreign exchange side, we are headed in the right direction. I have no doubt about that in my mind.
I like the conviction on your face. Yeah, you're very sure of what you're saying. That is what Nigerians need to see. And let me ask you, why is it that you've not initiated the engagement with the Parliament as allowed by the CBN Act? You see why they are raising all their hands?
Yes.
It's because they have piled questions that have been unanswered because of that lack of engagement. Yes. Are you planning to activate that part of the Act to periodically engage with the House to update them on what you are doing so that they will be carried along?
Yes. No, and to be frank, this is Mr. Speaker, this is an excellent observation. Let me say something though. This has been a particularly difficult few months where we had to really double down and understand what was going on, some of which is very complicated, and we had to take our time to unbundle a lot of things and try certain things, discard others. A number of circulars in the past week.
He's answering the question as to whether he will be interacting with you as allowed by the CBN Act. It is important that we hear him, Honorable.
And some of the out, they take a lot of time. So there was not put in one form. A lot of work has been work in progress. Now we have rolled them out, and we are very happy for the opportunity to be able to come and explain to the House how far we have gone and what the future pertains is. And as I said, to emphasize again, I'm very, very positive of the future in the foreign exchange market for Nigeria. And going forward, we will definitely use this opportunity to engage a lot better. And it's very important because our monetary policy committee, for example, our monetary policy, it is important to be able to communicate to what we are doing. And in that process, the House of Rep is a very critical voice that will be like an interlocutor between us and the people out in the constituencies. We recognize that, and we will do everything possible to make use of this particular body.
Thank you very much. There's a question that you have not addressed from Ali Madaki. He said there have been other CBN governors that you came and you are taking some part of the headquarters to Lagos. Is it a politically influenced decision or cause effective action?
Sure.
That people need to hear it. What is it about?
Yes.
Is it political so that they can educate their constituents?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. To answer, nothing political about it. Let me be upfront about that. Absolutely nothing political about it. The central bank, it has branches in every single state of the federation. And there's a need to calibrate strengths and resources between the various parts of the federation. That's basically it. In certain parts, and it's the same in the United States, absolutely no different. Where you are getting statistics in one, good to have people who have the skills the bank. So this is a tool whereby we're able to rebalance our skills around the country.
What specific department are you moving to Lagos?
I'll tell you. In the case
members, you have been so dignified in the way you have interacted with them. Let us not spoil it at this end of our engagement. You've been so dignifying. Your conduct, your speeches. Let us carry it like that as, honorable members. And I know we can do this. And you have done it so far. We're only running up in a few minutes. Let us sustain it till the end. Thank you very much. And I'm proud of you.
Again, I would say that, and I will just remind, this is not, we didn't change any plan. It's always been like this. We didn't touch any plan. All we have done is implement what is there. For example, because you asked the question, now for example, our banking supervision department, okay, much of that is based in Lagos by virtue of the fact that the banks are in Lagos. Like now, there's need to increase the surveillance on the banking system, especially at a time like this. And it is just appropriate that the banking close to where the banking system is. And it works very well, extremely well. For example, I can tell you that I flew out to Lagos just for one day yesterday to talk to the banking supervision department as they were about to commence the process of visiting the banks and give them a pep talk as to the things to bear in mind as they commence that process. And to be honest, I think in terms of relationships, it also works very well because where they are closer to the banks, they get to hear what is going on, they can interact with others that interact with those banks and be better for it. So from that perspective, I think that explains that.
So that is on the basis of efficiency, yeah?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
And it's cheaper.
All right. No point of order when he's speaking. We have a guest. It's not your standard plenary section. We have a guest. No point of order when the guest is addressing us. So round up, Honorable Governor,
right,
please.
Okay. Well, I think...
Touch on the issues?
Yes. Well, that's been... There's a very important issue that came up, which may slightly relate to what I just said. Why is central bank reluctant to wield the big stick on banks? I want to assure you that I have no reluctance to wield the big stick on anybody that we regulate. I have none. I have absolutely none. This is the time when people and entities that we regulate must comply. They must do the right thing. And we will stop at nothing in wielding the big hammer, the big stick, whatever we want to call it, but ensuring that they do the right thing and that they work in the interests of Nigeria.
So what you are saying is that the unreasonable deductions will be stopped?
Unreasonable deductions.
From the account? That's the question they asked. They said Sunday deduction.
Yes.
Gentleman, an honorable colleague asked the question here.
Yes.
Sunday deduction. That was the word he used. Yeah, that is Honorable Essien.
No, you did.
Are you saying if they are unreasonable deduction that the central bank is going to see that will stop that?
Definitely.
Nigerians would like to hear that.
No, definitely. There's a process, and once it's brought to our attention, we investigate it, and we will come down on any of the erring banks. We are definitely going to do that. In fact, some of our departments in the central bank are being strengthened to be able to carry out greater surveillance and oversight on the banks.
Thank you. I think we'll leave it at that. Governor of the Central Bank. Thank you very much. He missed out something? Use your mic. I want to hear you. He missed out something?
On the lifting of foreign exchange restriction, which was imposed by the previous administration in order to improve local production, but suddenly they lifted it, and I don't know who is going to give this middlemen, I'll call them middlemen because we know them, to import cement that BOA is doing, Dangote is doing, and we are a net exporter of cement in this country. And then we are given foreign exchange to people to import cement and meat and poultry. Of course it is here.
Okay. I think the summary of what Honorable Sada is saying,
so
what measures are being taken to address exchange rate volatility and its impact on imported inflation? Are we importing inflation by that particular act?
Well,
address it the way you feel comfortable.
Order, please. Order in the House.
I think it's very important to understand that Central Bank does not have responsibility to determine who imports and who does not import. It's not our remit. It is not. And for that reason, we want to ensure that we abide by our remit. Okay, and if there's an issue with respect to who can import and who can't import, those are all trade issues. They do not. It's not for us to now say.
I think it's not more of who can import. What should be imported and what should not. I think that's what Honorable Sada is.
Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking from the strength. I'm speaking from the strength of knowledge. This is from the CBN website. This is purely from the CBN website. They lifted what we are talking about, giving foreign exchange to importers, which the previous government came and met and they said no, they will not give. And then this government or this CBN lifted that restriction What we want to understand, or Nigeria want to understand, are these people coming through the CBN to get foreign exchange to import these things that you have lifted? It's not. I'm not talking about the trade. I'm talking about foreign exchange sourcing. What is the rationale? What is the rationale by lifting this foreign exchange?
Yes, if I can answer, that is a fiscal issue. It has nothing to do with us. So all I was trying to explain, and I'm sure that the Minister of Finance will talk more about it. All I was trying to explain was that we were going back to doing what we are meant to do. Finish. Nothing more.
Okay, so you just publish what you were given. You publish it based on what the fiscal policy reflected. Because you are throwing it back to the Minister of Finance.
Yes.
That is a policy from...
No, Mr. Speaker. Anything to do with preventing somebody from trading in any form is for the fiscal to worry about. It is not for us to do their job. It's not. It's wrong for us to have said 41 items are banned. It's wrong.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. You see, that was why we said there must be collaboration if we are going to align monetary policy and fiscal policy to fight inflation.
Yes.
So if you see that there's a fiscal policy that is not going in the right direction, you cannot just say, oh, that is what they gave to us, we'll work with it.
No.
You can also go to them and say, in a joint committee,
yes,
we don't think that this is the right decision.
Yes.
Because you are collaborating efficiently. That was why I raised that question. I think enough about that. I think you've covered all the ground. Right? Thank you very much. You can take your seat. Thank you.
There is a question that is being answered, sir.
Which one is that?
Very good. A question asked by Honorable Ismail Dabo from Bauchi, that people stocked dollars, and to the extent that if $1 trillion can be pumped in Nigerians' market today, in the next few months, it will disappear. CBN governor need to explain which measures have they been put
on corruption.
In place on corruption. Sir, to a layman, somebody just pimped it to me, is a very crude and radical approach. But if at all it's going to be possible, it's going to take Nigeria and other developing countries of the world out of this siege. For instance now, the essence of changing currency is to control monetary policies and transactions in between countries. If today US can just make a pronouncement that we are going to change the color of dollar, everybody is going to bring out his dollar. This is a crude way of doing it. Nigeria today needs a drastic measures to take us out of the current situation. Long-term issues. The long-term issues, sir. The long-term measures is that Nigeria must do everything possible to encourage local production, particularly in the area of mining, agriculture, and other non-related areas. 1. 2.
They mention it. They mention it.
Very good.
They have mentioned it. The budget mentioned it.
That is very good. 2, sir.
Excuse me, Honorable Jaha. If there was a question he missed and it borders on corruption.